stretching 65 acres down the valley floor. A dozen different species of animals living together out there, all interacting together just how they would in the wild. We tend to find that this natural interaction makes all the animals feel more comfortable and more likely to reproduce. Which is important because the park is primarily a breeder facility. Hundreds of babies every single year. About a baby a day.
Wow, awesome.
And I'll let you know we are swinging into springtime here. The babies are starting to appear. So keep your eyes open. Many of the antelope herds out here have little ones. At first though, I'm going to test your eyesight, see if you can find the zebra, which is more difficult here than you might expect. You look to the right-hand side, up towards the cab along the yellow fence line. And the Grevy's zebra are hiding there in the pine trees, along with some antelope and domestic cattle. Most likely trying to stay subtle, stay safe, because they don't realize that here at the park, there are no predators out with the prey. Everything else is so natural, they figure they better follow their instincts. Just like the waterbuck antelope to our left, or the beautiful birds to our right, including Goliath heron with the long red necks, and the Ruppel's vultures perched here and there along the rocks. Those are an endangered black and white carrion bird. And bear in mind, we need to save our carrion birds, ladies and gentlemen. We can't let them go extinct. Because out in the wild, they are the ones who pick up everybody else's mess. And if it weren't for vultures, the world would smell like roadkill most of the time. Meanwhile, back to our left-hand side is a herd of wildebeest antelope. Silver in color, they have a black face, short inward curving horns. Wildebeest travel across the great grasslands of eastern Africa, following the rains and eating the new grasses that the rain brings up. Just like the sudden rainstorm to our left-hand side, for example, as our horticulture department tests the sprinklers to make sure they didn't get clogged with mud during the rain we had over the weekend. All the antelope are watching the display as well, including the largest antelope in the world, eland. Big tan animal with corkscrew-shaped horns. Eland typically stand about 5 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh about 1,000 pounds. Big enough and strong enough, in other words, to fight off even some of the toughest predators, like lions. That is something which smaller antelopes, such as the hemsbok, with their big V-shaped horns, cannot do. Those horns look very impressive, but they are mostly for competition within the group, not for fighting with predators. Now, back to giraffes. We saw that juvenile bull earlier, snacking. Here's a full-grown adult just to our left. And then you can also see a baby in the background, about 3 months old. She's sitting down on the edge of the hill. Just her neck and head poking up above the ground. Which, even at her young age of 3 months, that is a very impressive neck and head. Giraffes are never small. She was born about 6 feet tall and has been growing 4 to 6 inches a month since then. thanks to the rich, high-quality milk she gets from her mother. Even if she won't be quite as heavy as a rhinoceros is. Rhinos are shorter, but they are more compact and muscular. And here you'll see an East African black rhinoceros, about 2,000 pounds, inside of what's called a boma, a smaller habitat used for animals who need extra privacy. Let's our keepers and our veterinarians watch over him as an individual and make sure that he gets any special care that he needs. Buffalo, meanwhile, travel in large herds, dark brown animals with thick inward curving horns. In the wild, they'll travel in groups that number between 100 and 150 animals. While back to our right-hand side, Somali wild ass, a silver animal with black striping on its legs. One of the most critically endangered animals on planet Earth, as they have been devastated by the ongoing war in their home country of Somalia. Today, less than 300 Somali wild ass remain. That's why we work here at the park in cooperation with other zoos on what's called a Species Survival Plan, SSP. By having babies, we hope to slow the disappearance of the Somali wild ass, and perhaps someday even reintroduce them back to the wild. Well, that is difficult right now, of course, because of the ongoing war in their home country of Somalia. Now, as we crest the hill, you'll see roan antelope on the left-hand side, the black and white faces and the short, backwards curving horns. Much like giraffes, the roan antelope have terrific eyesight. Unlike giraffes, roan antelope are not especially tall. And so you'll see they cheat a little bit, climbing up to the top of the hill where they can get the best view of the valley below them. Well, we also have good views on the right-hand side of the vehicle. Look for beautiful birds here from both Africa and California. Ducks, coots, pelicans, and the African crowned crane, a black and white bird with a yellow plume of feathers on its head. The bright colorations of the crowned crane are a way for them to show off to one another. Bright coloration for a crowned crane usually indicates an individual easily able to gather food, which in turn implies an individual who will be easily able to provide for its offspring. And that is an important consideration for the crowned crane, as they do tend to be a monogamous bird, with only one partner during their lifetime. It's a slightly different social organization than we'll see with a lot of the mammals out here today, who tend to be organized around the concept of a herd of females and a dominant bull who accompanies them. You'll see this type of organization with the kudu, for example. Those are the tan animals with the faint white stripes. The females typically gather together in a herd for mutual protection against predators. And then the dominant bull will run off any potential dangers to himself and his position, which is to say the younger bulls. Also have domestic cattle with long horns down the hill, and in the distance you can see the giraffes and the buffalo. In total, our park does cover about 1,800 acres of property here in the San Pasqual Valley. About half of that land dedicated for our beautiful animals, and about half left wild for the preservation of our native Southern California habitat. Now here, if you look carefully, we will get to see one of the animals who comes from the most extreme habitats in Africa. Actually, two animals that come from very extreme habitats. Underneath the ash tree is a dromedary camel. It's the type of camel with a single hump from the deserts of northern Africa and southwestern Asia. Then, near the round building with the cone-shaped roof, you'll see a group of udad, small tan mountain sheep with curving horns, who live on rocky outcroppings like the one across the valley from us. Udad can go from the bottom of that hill up to the top in just a few seconds, bounding from one seemingly impossible ledge to another, always seeking out the tiny shoots of green that stick through the rocks. Well, here to the left we have springbok with the black racing stripe and the white bellies, as well as a creche of baby eland, which are the tan animals with the corkscrew-shaped horns. We saw adult eland down the valley. I mentioned that they are the largest antelope in the world. The babies, of course, quite a bit smaller. That's why they gather together into the creche, or the nursery herd. The adult eland are not very good at forming herds. They tend to be extremely independent, joining up with each other and leaving on a whim. But the babies need the stability and the social structure of the herd. So they form a herd with the only other eland who will hang out with them. Springbok, meanwhile, you'll see the babies mixed into the main herd. A pair of youngsters, about a week old, just down the hill from us. That's because in the wild, springbok babies are sometimes born in the middle of a massive migration, as tens of thousands of springbok walk together in search of food and water. And that gigantic herd is not going to stop just because somebody had a baby. So the young springbok have to be on their feet quickly and keeping up with the adults, typically taking their first steps within 5 to 15 minutes of being born. Most antelope are very precocious, taking their first steps within about the first half hour of life. And that's primarily because mother antelope don't have fingers. And so it's difficult for them to pick their babies up and carry them with them. And generally speaking, as a baby antelope, you don't want to hang around where you are born, because the smell of the birth will attract predators looking for easy prey. Predators do tend to go for the young, sick, old, vulnerable. They don't like taking risk. And that's because in the wild, there are no veterinarians. There are no bomas. Something as simple as a broken leg can prove fatal to many predators. They just want dinner as quickly and as easily as they can get it. Well, as for us, we are cruising back towards where we began the tour today. You'll recognize our flamingos on the left-hand side, while the right-hand side has a herd of impala, including one dominant bull here with a magnificent set of horns. You can see him kind of pushing a juvenile male to the edge of the herd, watching him carefully. He will kick his own sons out of the herd as they start to come of age. The younger bulls have to go join a bachelor herd after their separation from the main group. But this Thompson's gazelle baby to our right has a long time to live with the herd. She's just a couple days old. And you can see her wading through the tall grass there. Thompson's gazelle have the black racing stripes and white bellies. At this young age, the baby is up and mobile, but you'll notice she's still taking a couple missteps, now lowering herself into the tall grass to hide from predators. Well, in the open we have fringe-eared oryx with the big V-shaped horns, and a southern white rhinoceros, who's come up to the edge of the shade structure. Looks like she has her big head down close to the ground, and nibbling for grass and hay that was dropped there. After all, rhinos are enormously hungry. Each rhino eats about 50 pounds of food per day. Which, just to contrast that, 50 pounds of food per rhino, on your left-hand side, I'm betting if you took all those baby cheetahs together, they wouldn't add up to 50 pounds. They're still quite small, and their mother is only about 80 pounds. Like I said, cheetahs are a very small, big predator. And generally speaking, they will not go for prey that's bigger than themselves. So if you weigh more than 80 pounds, congratulations, cheetahs are not your primary concern. Now, lions, on the other hand, pull out Now, cheetahs tend to prefer, though, the small, fast antelope, such as gazelle and impala, leaving bigger prey for other predators, such as the oryx to our right-hand side with their V-shaped horns, or, of course, the giraffes. I'm actually sneaking past these giraffes. I promise I have a good reason why. We do have a few more visible just down the valley, just as close up, and these ones are babies. Or at least a baby snacking out of the feeding area that's shaped like a tree stump. Just about 6 months old, so a little bit older than the baby we saw earlier. But a good contrast in size, both with the adult giraffe behind her and with the people on the caravan truck. It's just astounding sometimes to compare the giraffes to the size of the people. Female giraffes stand about 15 feet tall on average. Male giraffes about 17 feet tall. Those caravans, by the way, a great way to get out a little bit closer to some of our animals. Sometimes even getting feeding opportunities like you saw there. And you can ask about ticket prices and reservation information for the caravans at any one of the ticket booths around the park. Well, I want to thank you for coming on this tour with me. Please remember, this is a non-profit organization. The money that you spend at the park does go back towards our animals, back towards our conservation efforts, and back towards our operations here in San Diego County, in Africa, and around the world.